Welcome back to Two Nobodys, everyone. Rupesh is here again. Just a bit of a programming note. I know I haven't recorded anything in the last little while. Took a bit of a break, and over the summer you'll kind of see me here and there. Kyle will join me for a Two Nobodys talk at some point, but the summer will be a little quiet. But I'm really excited for this next guest. Sunandini Verma is joining us. She was made aware to me by one of my previous guests, Didi Adjua, who started a social media enterprise in Girl Table, which was a really exciting conversation. And she's like, Rupesh, you have to talk to Sunandini. She's just this amazing entrepreneur. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So we have Sunandini Verma joining us. Thank you so much for joining us, Sunandini. Today on a weekend, I mean, I always happen to record on a weekend, but I feel like it's an inconvenient time, and especially for someone who's running 30 businesses or something that, you're going to talk to me about all that, but thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I truly appreciate the kind words. I mean, I'm not sure I'm worthy of all of that, but I'm excited to chat with you and get to know each other and share some of my story.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about your journey and how you got started, and just like your mindset and your approach, and like how you approach leadership. And I just want to get into all of that. Was entrepreneurship something that was just was it part of your family? Like, were your family members business in the business world, or is this something? Are you on your own kind of separate journey from what your family was involved in?
I mean, I think definitely it's been my family's influence, but the one thing I knew for sure, even when I was probably 3 or 4 years old, that I had that entrepreneurial bug. I would sell anything that I possibly could, even in preschool, and in grade 2. I came up with my first business when I was literally 7 years old. So I think I've naturally had it, but also because of my environment. My parents are both business owners, and it's really all I've ever known. I'm an only child, so the only discussions we ever had around the dinner table were about the business and how to make it grow. So I would start coming up with strategies and be like, Mom, we should do this, Dad, we should do this. And it really just kept me creative and excited throughout my childhood and into my teens. And I did try to work. I did try to do the whole corporate thing for a little bit, but
just that sort of 9 to 5 sort of regular job.
Yeah, okay. I wanted, I guess, stability. And I think when you graduate university, you're so confused. You're so young. You're so confused. Sure. You're like, who am I? What can I really do? What are my limitations? You've also been molded into feeling that you are limited, and you have to do something in accordance to your skill set that you've studied or what you've been kind of forced into. So I was very confused. I didn't know where to go, what to do. So I actually, I studied broadcasting. So I worked in TV and journalism for a little bit. I did that whole journey.
That would have been, was that a scary environment in itself?
Oh man, yes. So this was, I guess, first I did communications, then I transferred and started doing journalism broadcasting. And just being in that field at that time, I think it was 2011, 12, it was very different. Basically, the whole Me Too movement was very, very prominent, and I've been talking about it since then. I would have these conversations with my friends, and they'd be like, no way, seriously? But it was everywhere that you went. It was kind of this, I'll do this for you if you do this, and it was not a pleasant experience. But again, I think I've been raised very strong to know who I am and my boundaries and my actual worth, so I never felt that I would give in to any of those offers, quite transparently.
Yeah.
But also for me, I think my heart wasn't in it. There was something about the limitations that come with being a Canadian broadcaster and the limitations that the CRTC does put into place. And we weren't doing cool things like podcasts and YouTube, etc. at that time. It just wasn't as prominent. So I felt very limited in the way that I could speak. I felt very limited in the stories that I could talk about, the passions that I could share. And my whole reasoning for getting into broadcasting was to talk about things that just weren't justified. So,
What do you mean by that?
I mean, there's a lot of things in specifically Canada, but also globally, that we don't talk about, that literally the law doesn't allow us to even have access to this certain information because of the rules in the CRTC. For example, the state of some of our correctional facilities, or the state of poverty, the state of drug abuse, the state of suicide, the state of mental health. There's a lot of limitations as to what we can and can't talk about
Interesting.
in traditional news channels. Yeah. So it was very frustrating for me. I would always come up with these stories and take them to my producers or take them to different stations. And I was like, yeah, that's great, but we're not really allowed. Or, I was very lucky that I had amazing professors throughout my journey that knew that I was an advocate for all these things that I want to talk about. And they were like, great. But, and again, I just felt very lost in that space. I didn't feel aligned with it. So I felt that it was not for me. And I had to follow my heart. And I was like, okay, in this moment, what I need is stability. So I decided to sort of go the corporate route. And because I did communications and journalism, I had a very strong marketing background. So I started working for a few corporations. All interesting experiences, all growing experiences. The first two were great. I learned a lot. The third one was really pivotal for me. And I won't say the name because I didn't have the best experience and I don't feel like being sued.
Yeah.
But the last one, it was very, very pivotal. I was only there about a year, but it was a tech company, a very prominent Fortune 500. And essentially my role there was to market one of their products into other corporations and channel partners. And I learned so much through that journey, not just about marketing and the way to really get users on board on softwares, but about the actual software and about the logic that goes into it and how that works. And I would always think about logic that either the client wouldn't think about or even the dev team wouldn't think about. So I was like, hey, maybe this is my skill set. Maybe this is something that I'm good at. I'm very I can create a really good organizational flows. I can sell anything to anybody. It's my only skill set that I take pride in.
It started at the age of 3 and 4, right?
Yeah, I can literally turn anything into a business. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is something for me. I was very unhappy doing that 9 to 5 grind because I felt I had to dim my light to fit into the environment. I felt unheard. I felt stagnant. I felt, okay, no matter how at the top of this company I try to go in maybe 30 years, my salary cap would be a certain amount and the life that I visualized for myself would not align with this journey. So, I left.
That would have been, so can I ask, that would have been hard? Because I mean, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. Those are those moments where I'm like, how do people make that shift, right? It's a Fortune 500 company, you have this stability, all these sort of things. You're saying it's dimming your light, which is an interesting way of putting it. And there was enough triggers in there for you to be like, I'm going to do something else here.
Yeah, I'm also a very spiritual person, and I'm very in tune with my intuition and my calling, and call it my higher self, my universe, whatever it is. And I felt that in order for me to not be my authentic self, I'm doing myself a disservice. And I was not my authentic self. Every day I woke up, I was miserable. I got on that train to work, and I just was not authentic to my highest self. And if I have such deep faith and trust in who I am and my universe, then I had to really just flow. The other thing is, honestly, it kind of happened very naturally. I think my boss at the time knew I was very disengaged and disconnected, and I was like, I really like, I don't want to be here. He wasn't the nicest person, also. So it was very political. It was very, you know, the things that happen around the water cooler, and that sort of stuff. And it's just not for me. So for me, while it was difficult, it was also very easy because I knew that I did something that was right for me, to my authentic self. I could expand myself. It was honestly really exciting because in that gray zone of the unknown, it's also, you're kind of limitless. Like things could go anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
And I was obviously scared. I'm like, what did I just do? And I was like, okay, like what now? But there was so much excitement and momentum around that. Like, look, I'm gonna like do my own thing. And very quickly, I think in about a week, I had a website up and running. I picked the name like that night.
Amazing.
I was like, let me draw some logos. Like, I was just like, no, I'm ready. And I think when you're ready, you don't have any other choice except to express your truth. And my truth in that moment, because I was up to here, like, I was like, I'm going to explode. My truth in that moment was I needed freedom from that situation. And the thing that brought me, the most freedom was doing something for myself. So initially I started out just consulting. Like, it was like, I will consult tech companies or companies in general how to go to market, how to launch their products, because that's what I know how to do since I was a kid, very naturally.
And so you relied, but so in order to market yourself as a consultant to start with, though, you like you have this history of being able to do that, but I would imagine you probably didn't have anything tangible to show people, right?
Yes. So I was very smart about it. Again, naturally, it just kind of happened to me. So the first thing was, I've never done any marketing till this day. Never had a sales team, never done anything. Everything that has occurred thus far has been word of mouth and the strength of the connections that I have. So my very first client that I had for consulting, it was a clothing brand. And, you know, I was just starting out. It was like a $45,000 account, which was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like 25 years old. I'm like, okay, sick.
Yeah,
Like, this
yeah.
will take me at least a few months into stability, whatever. And they were recommended to me through a friend who was like, I'm so proud of you for like, not even a friend, more like an acquaintance at the gym that I used to go to. And they were like, I'm so proud of you for starting this. Like, hey, somebody might need this. And it just worked out. And, you know, because I'm very confident in my skill set, I think it was a no-brainer for them. And when you speak with passion, people feel that. It's not salesy. It's my truth. If I try to like pitch you something, and I always tell people this, I'm like, sales is not about how you shake someone's hand or your gestures or your spine. It's about your authentic self and you actually believing and knowing what you're talking about. So that was very cool that instantly I kind of had that. But then the other thing that very naturally happened was, as a part of consulting, people started to have requirements to do websites or to do the technical components of, okay, great, I have this product, this is how I go to market, but then there's this whole development piece missing. So I was like, nobody's doing this. People are either marketing agencies or they're development agencies. They're not doing both. So
What does it mean to be a development agency? Like, what kind of work is that?
like app development, web development, software development, all that. And because I understood the logic of software development so strongly, so my starting point was very easily apps and custom software. And then obviously websites come as a part of that. If we're branding, we need to fix your website. If we're doing marketing, we need to do, you know, a whole user flow. We need to do these things to actually have higher conversion.
Sure.
So I was like, I need to now have that. And then because I kept in touch with a lot of the developers at my previous role, a lot of them did freelancing on the side.
Nice.
So I was like, hey, you know, I might have a one-off project for somebody. Like, how do we can we work together, like whatever, and everybody was like, hell yeah, we're down. Who doesn't want to make a extra, $5,000 for whatever. Then the cool part about all of that was because they became contractors for me, I was allowed to use their portfolios in the beginning. So I had nothing, right? Like I've never done a website. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So as I onboarded, like I think it was like four or five freelancers at the time. They all had, 5 or 6 portfolio things under them that they could share, and they were like, go ahead, because the work is going to them.
Sure. Yeah.
So initially, I'm telling my secrets right now. Initially, that's what we did, because I was like, I need something, and the skill set was their skill set, so I'm not like pretending it's mine. It was, these are the developers and this is the work that they've done. And that really allowed me to build the momentum till now, where we have our own portfolio of over 120 websites. We've done over, I don't know, something like 50 apps, the odd blockchain project, some augmented reality, some IoT stuff. So eventually those things snowballed into my own solid portfolio where I don't need to use my developers anymore.
It's amazing. Like I was reading on your company Amrev Media, and just all those things that you just said that you did, and I'm like, how did she know to do all these things? Like how does she? And so it's the amazing part of this is that you're leveraging these connections, these resources. You have this internal, obviously there's this internal drive, but like there's a sense of resourcefulness that I'm seeing in you, right? And that's, that enabled so much to happen. The other thing you spoke to was showing up really authentically, and like that's such an important thing for being influential, for marketing, all that sort of thing. I don't know if you've read Arlene Dickinson's book, Persuasion,
No.
but she talks. Do you know who that is?
Yes, of course, yes.
And she talks about the number one thing for her is authenticity. And she says when people come to her and pitch their products, or when she goes out and pitches on behalf of other companies, she says that's the most important thing is to be authentic. Like, would you say for yourself that it was something that was always within you to show up in a really truthful way to people, or was that something you're like, I need to do this in order to be influential, and it's like I need to find myself and be authentic? Like, was that how would you say that showed up for you?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because the one thing about being authentic is you also have to accept that not everybody will like you.
Yeah.
And that was a tough journey for me, because there's a part of me that's a people pleaser, as I think a lot of us have in us, to a certain degree. But then, I really also had this side, even growing up, that was very like, I don't care. I am who I am. I'm doing what I'm doing. But then you're constantly swaying between this version of you that makes everybody else happy and maybe not you, or you're focused on yourself and then people perceive you however. And I think the more empowered, higher self version of me is definitely just authentic to myself. And I honestly don't care what people think. And that takes work. It takes a lot of persistence in knowing what's right for you. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of grounding. And honestly, like, I'm kind of a loner, which is, a lot of people don't think that. Like, I have friends, I go out, but then it's very important for me to disconnect and be by myself and practice what's energetically right for me and fills me up.
Yeah.
I think authenticity is constantly changing as well. I think as I get older and I evolve, what's authentic to me also changes. Like, who I am as a daughter has evolved over the years. Who I am as a friend, who I am as a leader has evolved over the years. So that authentic self constantly keeps changing.
Yeah. You said that you don't really care what people think. Now, I wonder about just the work that you do, right, in terms of being on the marketing side, right? I would imagine as part of the business that you probably do have to care about what people think. And I could be wrong. I don't know anything about the business, but I would imagine understanding the customer base, the clientele, the trends, all those sort of things. It's what society is thinking about whatever you're working on, right? How do you am I wrong about that, or
For me, the business and observation of people is a different
okay?
thing than me in my body caring about validation or caring about approval or caring about, you know, how I come off is a very different
Okay.
thing. I think it's extremely important to be a powerful observer of market trends, but also people and their behavior and how they're essentially mirroring parts of you. I really do believe that. I believe if I show up being an asshole, people are going to be an asshole to
Right.
me. If I show up in a certain manner, people will show up in the same manner to me. But I think it's very important to observe on the logical side and the analytical side. Okay, these are the market's trends. These are the demographics. These are some KPIs that matter to us. And then really for me, it's how to acquire that user and how to build a technology around it that helps sustain that user, or vice versa. Sometimes it's the tech comes
Yeah.
first and then the marketing. 90% of the time, it's the tech that we build first and then we work on the user acquisition side after. So I've already got such a deep dive into the product on my analytical mind self side. But that mind and analytical side has really nothing to do with me, Sunandini, as an identity. So the validation of your product doing certain numbers doesn't define for me who I am and my authentic self. It doesn't sway me right or left. It might be an opportunity for me to learn if I'm observing something that's not lining up with that. But as far as the actual emotional feeling side of validation, I don't correlate that to my work, to be
Do
honest.
your values carry over into your business?
I think they have to, just to a certain degree. But I'm also very compartmentalized as a
Mm.
person. I think every pillar of your life is a pillar that is separate. And if one is not thriving, then you pay more attention to the others until the other one kind of picks up. And you are who you are, but you also have to be a chameleon to some degree to adapt into different environments and adapt into different versions of yourselves and all the roles that we play as people, and really be able to disconnect from things that don't really
Right.
intertwine. For example, like I see a lot of people that are business owners that will be having a bad, let's say, month, but then they'll take it out on their health.
Mm.
Like, oh man, I'm going through a rough time, I'm not going to go work out. Personally, I don't understand that. I've never understood that. It's just like not who I am. So to me, it's like, okay, this isn't thriving right now. Where can I refocus? You know what? Let me hit the gym twice a day. I will go extra
Sure.
hard
Yeah.
to just, balance myself. So I think, of course, my values, like my core being is who I am, but you also have to adapt to changes constantly, especially as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go back just to your your communications experience, and you said, I don't know, is am I the only person who doesn't know this, that in with the CRTC rules and that we can't talk about, like, tell me more about that, because I'm honestly like really, if you can anyways, I'm like really surprised that like there's certain things that the media is limited by in terms of what they can explore or can't explore. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So, how do I say this? um, I think certain countries have media stations that are not affiliated directly to the government and government st-
Mm-hmm.
stories. Canada is not one of those countries. Um, not in the worst way, because I do think the intent is to protect the people. But with that, there also comes frustration of freedom of speech, and we're not the only country like that. A lot of the world, but so like I'm Indian, you're
Yeah.
Indian as well, I assume, Patel, yeah. it's a very different story back home. For example, like like if you actually literally turn on like Indian news, it's people screaming, being like, "No, this is my opinion. This is what happened. And here's the documentation." And I love that. I'm so passionate about that. I love that there's that very open conversation, and the 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 resistance that you'll get won't be from your own station. It'll be maybe from the people. Maybe they'll be like, "Oh, I don't like that you said this," or you might have a whole other trickle down effect of freedom of speech. However, there is that freedom of speech. We don't operate like that
Okay.
here. And one of the things that I know is a concern for a lot of people is that limitation as far as mainstream media goes. But yeah, I'll send you some links and stuff after.
This is going to be an episode. I got to dig into this. This is fascinating
Okay.
because to think that I mean, I figured there, every media organization has a bent and there's things that they want to cover and don't cover. But to think that there are limitations from a central organization on what the media can explore, I don't know if a lot of Canadians know that. Maybe I don't know.
They
And
don't.
I think that's an issue, right? Like how can we not have a free
Yeah.
media? We talk about this, we praise this, in the era of a Donald Trump presidency where he accuses the media of being fake, and we talk about all these things, and we're saying we need to protect the press, but there's a I don't this is blowing my mind right now,
You-
Sunandini.
we will talk about this
Okay, all
offline
right.
because I just don't feel like, getting
That's
sued.
all good, all good. And I don't want to put you in that position, but you definitely
I'm
you
joking.
triggered
Yeah.
something. So yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I have many things I will send you after, and you know, politics is something I don't love to discuss because my views are not everyone's favorite. Because I think there's an expectation that as a woman, as a colored woman, I should think a certain way, vote a certain party, and I don't align with a lot of that. So I just try to be quiet.
All right. Well, my next piece
But
like what kind of interest.
how do
Well,
you
no,
vote?
I would never ask that, but just
I'm joking.
just
I'm joking. I'm
more
joking.
about the influence of politics and how it shaped like your view on business and your approach to business, or does it not, and do you not really follow politics and care about that sphere? Because I feel like we're in a like
Um,
I mean we always say this, we're in a crazy time, but right now it does particularly feel like there's some major world things happening that everyone is kind of a part of, and it's really splitting, folks across different party lines, and so many things are going on that it just feels different. Like everyone I talk to says it feels different. So I'm just curious.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been basic rule to divide and conquer, and that's how everyone's
Mm.
always done it. So it's just history is repeating itself, and I think now people are smarter. We're a little bit more empowered. We have a lot more access to information. I think people think very differently now, as opposed to, XYZ
Right.
equals this, so we must believe this. Now we're like XYZ question mark, let me make up my own, like for me personally, I am kind of a selfish person in the sense that I'm not very driven by global
Mm.
affairs. It's not something that I am deeply connected to. I'm not like a protester. I care more about the immediate effect to the people that I care about, my close circle. And honestly, putting food on my
Sure.
table, that's my
Yeah.
priority, right? And I think there's a lot of people that operate from a sense of community and a global alignment. That's
Mm.
just not who I am. I care about the causes that I care about, but outside of that, I'm not really well versed in things that don't really affect
Yeah.
me personally. I know it sounds super selfish, but also I have to, as a human being, it's important to sustain our energy and try to, again, be authentic. I'm not going to pretend that I care about what's happening in whatever corner of the world. If it doesn't bring an emotion out in me, I'm not going to
Yeah.
pretend that it does. I also don't feel the need to speak on everything. Like I see a lot of people these days that have a percentile of the knowledge that they should on a cause, constantly sharing on social media that this is right, this is wrong, like I'm like, okay, but it's very frustrating because again, it's that like analytical mind that I have that I actually will like read bills, I will like read policies, I will do all that and then make a decision not based on what Rihanna posted
Right.
on
Right.
Instagram, you know?
Right.
Love the
Right.
girl, but like that's not how I operate. So yeah, I mean, that's the long answer. The short answer is I don't really
Yeah.
care.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
anything that's happening right now affecting your businesses? So I mean, for obviously inflation is the biggest thing that's on everyone's mind, and the cost of living, and
Yeah.
is any sort of um, global affair issue, I guess, impacting your businesses in any way?
Definitely the crypto market being
Yeah.
so down is not good for us because we really do a lot of work in blockchain and building blockchain technologies, not just crypto related, but also general security, etc. So that has not been the best, but at the same time, there's this whole audience of people that's like, wow, this is such a good opportunity to actually get into the space and build from here. The other thing is our recent cyber attack. I mean, power outage at
Oh,
Rogers or
okay.
network outage. Just kidding.
There's a lot of offline stuff that I think we're going to be talking about. So unless you want to talk about
I'm
it.
going to get in so much trouble on this podcast. No, it just from like a tech perspective, a lot of the outages don't
Mm.
make sense to me because I'm not sure how a server update takes out nationwide service. And I'm not sure how the terminals are able to process Visa and MasterCard but not Interac because the
Mm.
internet is down. I'm not sure how any of that works, but that's fine. Um, but I think that that's also an opportunity for a business like mine because we can take that story and explain to people that this is why ownership of your data, ownership of your own servers, ownership of your own cybersecurity team, your own code, your own software is everything. And I'm all about ownership. The one thing I'm constantly pushing is like, don't advertise on Instagram, advertise in your own platform where you have more
Mm.
control. Like, third parties are
Are not
not
there for you, right?
not and they're
Okay.
not
Yeah.
secure. It's not, that's not the whole, like, I look at, not to put down any, like, for example, Salesforce is one of my favorite softwares as a CRM. It's amazing what they've done, kudos to them as a company. But if I were to go to my client and really what the right thing for them to do, if they're like, okay, these are my two options. I have a budget, I can build my own, or can I do Salesforce? I'm going to say build your own because at the end of the day, you're still storing data and information on third parties. Like
Yeah.
their server, they have access to your flow. Whereas if you have ownership of your own experience, your user experience, your own clients, your own data, like it's just from a security standpoint, it's very empowering. And that's really the shift for me that is going to be my focus over the next year to get my clients, new and existing, to make that transition into independent ownership of their softwares and the things that they want to do. The other thing in the current market space that's affecting us is the transition of NFTs. Obviously, it was a bubble. I knew
Sure.
that
Yeah.
from the start. But the usability case part is very interesting and fun for us to dabble in because there are NFTs that have usability and there is a metric to that that makes sense. And it's a unique experience that globally now people can tap into rather than, uh, pre
Mm.
NFT era or pre metaverse era or augmented reality era. You couldn't have certain experiences. So those are really the transition points for us right
When
now.
so
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to understand. So you said taking ownership, I think, is really important for your clients. Would that mean explain, I guess, the interaction with that in the blockchain? So I'm assuming it's
Mm-hmm.
getting folks' platforms on the blockchain. This is still a gap
Mm-hmm.
in my knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
so you'll have to maybe walk
Mm-hmm.
me
Mm-hmm.
and our listeners
Yeah.
through that a bit. So that's one question. And the second question is, I guess, with the crypto market being down so much, I remember listening to somebody who, I guess is an expert in this field, and was saying that the focus on all these different coins or whatever is a bit is a little bit is a bit of noise, right? On what really the the actual value proposition is of a blockchain, right? It's like the people who are actually truly investing in these blockchain networks, like they understand the value of this. People investing in all these altcoins or whatever from an investment standpoint, like that's kind of creating a bunch of noise. I wonder if the downturn in the crypto market is actually an opportunity for the people who truly want to add value in that space to really refocus things. So kind of a bit of a two-parted question there.
As far as the ownership component goes, it's not just about the blockchain, but it's also about their own softwares and having their own customer database stored on their own servers rather than a third party, having their own access to their own payment processing, access to their own bank-to-bank transfers, access to their own internal ecosystem, really, is what I refer to as ownership, not just blockchain. Blockchain is, of course, the most secure way, because once something's on the blockchain, it is not able to be altered. A good example of that is a document sharing tool that we're actually working on right now internally, and it's going to be something that we sell to companies. Just sharing documents on the blockchain so that if there's a signature on it, you can't go in and take a screenshot and change it later. I can't copy someone else's signature. I can't, just give access to any Joe Schmo. I can't download the documents. Things like that have boundaries around the document are very important. So that's one of the many use cases of blockchain that allows people to have ownership.
Are there certain networks that you like are favoring now more than other networks?
Yeah.
Like,
well, the
really
blockchain can be
matter,
built on many networks, but as far as like a currency related network, I'm an Ethereum fan all day. I love Ethereum. I love what they've done. I love where they're going. I find them to be the most stable and predictable, which I love. I love that you can study Ethereum and you kind of get the gist of it. With that said, I don't know, I'm excited to see what else happens. To your point earlier, it is definitely a really good opportunity right now for businesses and people who are into the space to really understand how to integrate blockchain into their business and then potentially provide themselves with some sort of financial freedom through a coin. It really scares me when everything, like all our money sits in our, government-run banks. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it does scare me when there's potential threats. And then what happens? How do I have ownership of my money? What I love about something like Ethereum or, even Bitcoin, etc., crypto, is if I have a lot of money in that, I can put it on my hard wallet. I have access to that. What am I going to do if my RBC server shuts down and gets hacked? What do I do? Right?
Sure.
Like if all our money's gone, what are they going to do? How is those kind of things really freak me out these days. So just anything third party is not fun.
Now, is it that, so in terms of an actual currency that folks can use as a way for making transactions and paying for things, is owning Bitcoin very different than like owning like an Ethereum coin or an Avalanche coin or something, where like it seems like that coin, like for Ethereum or Avalanche or Solana or whatever, those are actually used for transactions on their networks, right? Where like Bitcoin seems like an actual like monetary currency, or are they all the kind of same?
I think it just depends on what the companies decide to do. What Bitcoin's done brilliantly is actually have it placed everywhere, right? So you can use it a little bit more. That's just the freedom that they have right now. But every country is different. In some other countries, it's a totally different story. So it really just depends on how they're going to set up their usability cases. We're still, as old as it is, it's still brand new. So I think there's a lot that has to be put into place. There's so many rules and regulations that we have to work around. For example, the states, and each state has a different set of rules, and everybody has to go through a whole different legislation to even get to create your own coin. Or the SEC, for example, Canada
Yeah.
has totally different rules. We have much more freedom with that right now, but I'm not sure what will happen in the future. It's a very interesting time, and I think the thing that keeps me up at night is really how will money change and what's the right thing to do right now, because we're going to have regulations in crypto then. So then how does that, the other thing I worry about is like we're not going to have food in X amount of time. I do think about that often. I'm like, everybody's worried about gas. Like, there's already a shortage of food, and
Absolutely.
the flow of that is really scary. So, vertical farming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
I
God,
we
I'm
did a whole
obsessed.
episode on vertical farming. It's so interesting, and even cell agriculture for me, I find is a fascinating space.
Yeah.
If that takes off, like I'm probably not going to be eating. Like for me, like I transitioned to I was a vegetarian for about 32 years, and then that was all ethical for me, and I mean
Same.
cultural as part of that too. But then I decided to start eating meat because my vegetarian proteins, I couldn't digest a lot of them, and so I introduced meat. But if I don't have to, I don't really want to, because for me there's an ethical component. Like we try to buy from a local farm and be organic and certified humane and do all those things that we think are right. But if cell agriculture, if that's an opportunity there,
I
I
gotta
would
write
I
this
wouldn't mind
down
getting
and
into
check it
that.
out
So
later. Or send me the link on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
we did a cool conversation with this uh, person out of the University of the Fraser Valley. Her name
Okay.
is Dr. Lenore
Okay.
Newman, and she's all into this. This is what she focuses on, and it's just a really neat conversation. But yeah, food prices are. I mean, I'm in Edmonton, and things are just getting. The more north you go in Canada, the more expensive things get, right?
Yeah.
But um, yeah, those are interesting challenges. I was going to ask you
Okay.
something more on the crypto space, but I forget. I want to ask you. So Amrev Media is one of your, would you say your primary businesses, or how do you, and what are your other ones, and how do you even find time for
Yeah,
anything?
so Amrev is the agency, and that is definitely my number one priority.
Yeah,
We have clients under that. We develop their projects. We do user acquisition, all that fun stuff. So keeps me on my toes because every project is so different. Every journey is so different. Every person that you work with is so different. So just constantly learning and evolving. And really, I mean, it's been such a fun ride. I'm so grateful because I've learned so much, and I continue to learn so much every day. You're wearing so many different hats. Sometimes I'm the salesperson, sometimes I'm the project manager, sometimes I'm, and you have
yeah.
to know everything about every project in depth. So,
That's what I was going to ask you. Is that like as the head of that company, how involved do you get in all your
more than I should
projects?
be probably, but I
Okay.
prefer to stay involved rather than disconnected because it keeps me excited and it keeps me passionate and it keeps
Mm,
me going. Also, I think a lot of the clients that I do have are because of me and not because of a skill set. So I want to make sure that that connection stays with them going forth.
sure.
I just like to learn wherever I can, and I find it very exciting when we see a project that seems a little bit challenging, and I'm like, okay, what about this? Like, I love to like do research on those type of things, so I like to stay as involved as possible. Then outside of that, we have a meditation app that my father and I worked on, and we're really lucky to partner with U Ventures, who's our fund. They're our VC.
Okay.
And, that's
And so the meditation app, like, what was the driver for that? Is this something meditation's always been a part of your
Yeah, so
practice, or?
Ananta, which is the name of the app, plug. um, it's a very unique concept because essentially, when you're born, there's a certain energy and frequency that the earth vibrates at, and there's a mantra associated with that. And our app is really focused on the uniqueness of each journey and each mantra. So, for example, if I want to tap into creating more abundance into my life, whether it's through abundance of love or abundance of wealth, etc., there's a very specific mantra and sound associated to that that I have in my body as a vibration based on when and where I was born. So in order for you to call something into your life, you have to be a vibrational match to it, period. So the app really is not just about meditation, but it's about manifesting through meditation. You're never really creating something, you are tapping into a version of something that already exists. Because to your point, I'm a very resourceful person, and I'm just tapping into resources all the time that already exist. And we all have that in us. So the app is very centered around how to shift yourself vibrationally to align with that version of you that calls in certain experiences into your third dimensional reality. I'm very passionate about it. We spent I don't even know how many years, 5 or 6 years, to get it up and running and like get the perfect algorithm, get the perfect output. Because how do you do that? We had to test it on hundreds of people. And here we are with, I think we just hit about 65,000 downloads. Yeah, it's really cool.
That's
It's
amazing.
really fun. It ticks every box for me. Really, I owe it to my dad because my dad is a spiritual teacher. He teaches thought transformation. He's a Vedic astrologer as well, and he really came up with this concept of how to merge astrology into a way to be limitless and not limited. And I think the issue is specifically with the Indian community, we're so like fear driven. We're raised to be like, oh, this is a bad time for you, got to do this. It's never that. The thing I love
100%.
about astrology is how to utilize it to be limitless and to optimize each chapter of your life, because your soul made that journey when it took birth. So you were born the moment that you were because that was also your soul's decision. And you must live out the parts that you must in the best optimal way that you can as a human being, as consciousness, right? So I owe that part of that understanding to my dad, and I was like, hey, we should make an app out of this. Obviously, it's just, I'm in tech, I got to do it. I was like, hey, this makes sense. Look at the numbers, Dad. Look at the financials of some of our competitors. So it just kind of naturally aligned, and that's definitely my, I hope that goes where I know that it will, and that's the type of impact that I care about. What we were speaking about earlier, like I don't care so much about the politics. I care about like larger impact in terms of shifting people's lives and minds and empowering consciousness. So I got into all the spiritual stuff very, very young, while of course it was accessible in my home through my parents. I just had my own curiosities. I think the first time I like spoke to my mom about what God really is, I think I was like 7 or 8, and I was like, we're just like really.
Were you raised Hindu?
Yeah, I am raised Hindu.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure how practicing I am, in the sense that I don't do like the ritualistic stuff so much. However, there is a strong science to a lot of the rituals, so I prefer that side. I'm blessed to be raised Hindu because when you actually study Hinduism, it's all about limitlessness. It's about quantum physics. It's quantum jumping. It's literally the power of your mind. Everything is internal. It's about manifestation. It's about our million gods, which are literally just avatars of one. and tapping into, again,
Sure.
different
Yeah.
energies. Like, so it's, I just wish that it was taught to us as kids very differently than the way that it was. But again, for me, my curiosities around spirituality were my own, and I've read everything under the sun, from Western philosophies around it to Eastern to everything, and you realize, okay, it's all the same, so it must be true. It's just written in 100 different ways. And then I guess the other project that we're launching and very, very, very excited to launch is called Shagin, which is self-explanatory to people that know the Indian culture. But for those who don't, when we go to Indian weddings, you have to take an envelope full of cash and
Yeah.
write people's name on it, or you write them a check. So somebody like me, like, nobody can spell my name. I always have to give checks back, and I'm like, void, hey auntie, like, you spelled my name wrong, and then the check's never coming back. I'm never getting my money. So this is a digital way to send money to a bride and groom for their occasions throughout their wedding.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so smart. So
yeah,
smart. There's also like the security aspect of
yes,
it. Like I don't know if you've heard, like people
yes,
take these boxes like some people steal these big boxes of money at weddings, right?
yeah,
Like it's I remember our wedding, like my dad was just like
yeah.
somebody's got to watch
Yeah.
that box at all
Yeah,
times,
so
you know.
most of the banquet halls here, like in the GTA, have like security guards or police officers now. The
Yeah.
security box is such a mission, or like someone's mom is sitting there holding like 300 envelopes under her arm and can't move and can't
Right.
live, like can't
Right.
enjoy her own child's wedding. So yeah, it's a digital way. I have two amazing partners on that project that, they're just brilliant. I'm so lucky to work with them, and we're really excited. We're launching in India, and here, and
Just start big. Just launch it in India, why don't
yeah,
you, right?
I
Like
mean, go big or go home, right? But the payment processing space is so interesting because the regulations around it are absolutely crazy. But we've found some ways to make it happen, and I think there's a humanitarian component to Shagin that's really exciting for me, which is, again, in India, as you know, in our culture, typically the father pays for the wedding, especially back home, and there's a lot
mm,
of communities that can't afford that. So there's a whole crowdfunding element of, yeah, like we
that's
want
awesome.
the dads to be able to raise money for their daughters and get them married, and that involves the global community. It allows people from all walks of life and corners of the world to be like, I want to donate, $100 to this villager, so that they don't have to take on a loan and commit suicide after. Like, literally, that's the
Yeah.
story. And it's not an
Yeah. Yeah.
exaggeration, which shocks a lot of people. They're like, is that an expression? I'm like, no, this is their truth. Like, they can't take on debt like that. So,
Well, and imagine like I wonder what it could do for those families in India that feel the well, I don't want to put it in quotes because it is it they it's there's a lot of truth to it, but like the burden of having a
mm-hmm.
daughter, right? Because they feel like the financial burden of having to pay for a wedding, that still exists obviously in India. Like if something like this could help alleviate it because of the crowdfunding,
I
imagine
know.
like the
I know. It
possibilities, like
like it like makes me
amazing.
emotional because the root cause of why female eggs are often terminated is because
Yeah,
of the financial burden, and specifically around the marriage. So, I mean, if this is the trickle down of what happens, like, I'm so humbled and touched that this could be something that we could do, I was actually
yeah,
reading about it yesterday because in India, actually, you're not allowed to get a scan that tells the gender of the baby. And
that's
that
right.
blew
Yeah,
my mind. And then I was like,
that changed I think a
and I
few
was like,
years ago.
well,
Yeah,
that makes sense because people terminate.
yeah.
Like, I just, yeah. Anyway, we're very excited about that and excited to see where it goes. I think the other part of your question was, how do I do the things that I do? It's,
Yeah.
again, that superpower of being compartmentalized. Yeah. Like, when I'm
Mm.
meditating, I'm meditating. When I'm working out, I'm working out. When I'm doing my work, I'm doing my work, and that's it.
There was something you said though earlier about other other business people that you work with where when things aren't going right, the things that they sacrifice are themselves, right? Like their own quality of life, like they stop working out, those sort of things. Like, is there a part of you that recognizes that in order to sort of care for others or do the things that you want to do, you got to take care of yourself first?
Absolutely. I think you have to be full in yourself. Like if I'm not, then I'm very like irritable. And again, to the whole thing about mirroring each other, if I can't mirror the best version of myself, then what is fed back to me is not in alignment with the best version of myself, right? So that's really important to me, and probably to the point where it's like kind of annoying. Like I'll go on vacation with my friends and I'll be like, okay, see you guys at 1:00 because I need to go work out and meditate and do my thing. And then I'll be really fun rest of the day. But that's just what it is. And it's very important to operate from that because that's life. Like it's up and down, right? You can't like take it out on yourself. And I think we're given this body, we're given this mind that we are to optimize our experience as much as possible. And what's the point if you're not like enjoying yourself, or you're not having fun, or you're not able to tap into this version of you that, you know, is its greatest self? Like what's the point? I don't want a mediocre life.
I love it. How many staff do you have now across all your businesses?
So still all freelancers for my development agency. For Ananta, I think we have like 4 or 5 developers. We have 3 marketing people. We have a product owner, like 10, 12, something like that. I don't know. I don't even know.
Yeah. And what would you say is your approach to leadership? And was that, is that something that you thought about when you started these businesses, that hey, I'm actually like leading other people, like there's a responsibility that goes with that?
I never really thought about it. I just felt it was very natural for me. And again, it's that authentic part that I take a lot of pride in because I don't know everything. I think my team leads me more than I lead them, because they know everything. They know like every trend, they know every little detail. They keep me alive, they keep me passionate. And really without them, I'm nobody, I can't do anything. So while I get to be the fun face in front of everything, the truth is that the leadership really comes from them. And I don't believe in hierarchy. I think that the word leadership has so many negative connotations sometimes attached to it, where people think that, oh, it's like the boss and like it's this like something above anybody. But to me, leadership is more about being in a frequency that allows other people to level up and align with you, and vice versa, where you're co-creating. It's not me up here and then people here, or vice versa, because then you're never on the same page. True leadership is about being a strong vibrational match to the goals and the outcome in place. And I think we're all on the same page that we want to push out a good project. We want it to be easy. Our core values are around ease, communication, and just doing a good job so that things are simple. Let's not complicate it. Let's keep it going. And the thing about tech is like, if there's an issue, there's a solution. So like, I never panic. I'm like, okay, this is what this is. And then that trickles down into people not panicking. But if I start being like, oh my God, how will we do that? Da, 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 like, it's going to be that momentum, right? So just being mindful of my own energy and vibration is what allows me, I think, to be a strong so-called leader. But it's really just alignment. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like the way you framed it. Like, I've never heard someone say it that way, like having that vibrational match to the goals and outcomes that you're all trying to strive for. Does that, when you're in those situations of, you know, you said you're involved on all or many of your projects, right? And I imagine that there are other, like some of your staff or even the freelancers or such. I'll just count them as staff, right? If they're really working on these projects and you're kind of going into them, right? Like there's always that challenge or those tension points that sometimes staff can have with their leaders of like, hey, you're in it too much. Like I need you to like back off, or like, how do you balance like, okay, we're all in this for these goals and outcomes, and so I'm going to come into this as much as you are, but also balancing that against, like, no one wants a
Oh
micromanager
yeah.
at the same time.
Oh, I do not
Right.
micromanage. Like, it's actually probably annoying because they have to like chase me down and be like, "Hey, do you want to get on a call? Don't you want an update?" I'm like, "No, I trust you," but I'm also very structured. So like, if I expect a deadline to be met on a Thursday at noon, then that needs to happen. And
Right.
then if it doesn't happen, then we're going to have a deeper conversation, which happens sometimes. And we just go over why the challenges are in place, what the delay is, how can we fix it. Communication is everything. I think you have to find a fine line of communication with your staff. Like, over communication is never healthy. It's also, I don't have the
Right.
energy for it personally. Like, I can't. But also under communication, then you have a gap in like where you're at with things. So I think it's just about that fine line of knowing when to touch base. You have a set time in place. We do daily stand-ups at noon or 9 a.m. depending on the team,
Yeah.
and you just touch
Yeah.
base. And I think that that's what keeps people excited and in flow. But also, I don't need to know every nitty gritty detail. Like, I don't care if you're doing work at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. as long as a deadline is met. I literally don't care. I never have. We've always been work from home, so the transition in COVID was zero for us.
Right. Fair. Yeah.
It was literally like, okay, great. But yeah, I think, I don't like to micromanage. I don't want to. I don't have energy for it. I just want to see the final product, but also I need to know every functionality that's being put into place. I don't need to know how. I'm kind of like that in general life. Like, I need to have a goal, but I don't need to know the how of how it's going to get there. So, yeah.
When you started supervising and leading staff, was there something, like you said, leadership kind of came to you, felt like it came to you naturally? Were there some gaps that you're like, hey, I probably need to, like, was there any extra training or anything that you felt like you needed to look into because you maybe felt like there was something missing? Or, like, you say sometimes you have to have these hard conversations, right? Was it, yeah, how did you, because some people get very skilled at them, some people, I guess, can be natural at them, but any sort of things that you felt like you needed to work on once you kind of got into supervising and leading teams?
I take a very spiritual approach to everything. So, again, for me, it's inside out and not outside in. I feel if something is not aligning, I need to get real with myself and work on the energy that I am projecting, because that speaks more, that speaks louder than any words I will ever say if the person in front of me is in a resistant space, for example.
Yeah.
Some of the challenges that I faced were not really around leadership, but more so around the communication styles that people have. Everybody speaks very differently.
Okay. Yeah.
I think some people are very dry, and I'm kind of like, or some people they like to exaggerate their own stories. And then I can pick up on things like that. And if I sense like insecurity in people, it like really turns me off. But then, I had to separate the fears of a person, their ego, and then their skill set, to be able to focus more on their skill set and separate their own internal mush, because
Yeah.
then that would
Yeah.
affect me. Like, I would start getting irritated. So something I had to fine tune definitely was becoming, again, more of an observer to the people that I work with, rather than an emotional connection. And you can't be emotional in business. You realize that over the years, as I solidify myself even more, the more I'm like, okay, no, this is your internal thing. Shut it down. This is what we need to focus on.
Is that separate from, because we hear more and more, and I would say for myself, I lead in this way, from a place of exhibiting and expressing vulnerability. Is that something that you think shouldn't exist as a business leader, or you're saying that's something different from the whole point of, like, when you say you shouldn't necessarily show your emotions, or I don't know if that's exactly what you're saying, but
I don't think it's about emotions. I think it's about getting emotional about it. So, for example, let's say, someone's expressing they're like overcompensating, but I know that they don't have a certain skill set. So to me, the skill set is more important than the overcompensation part, because if I focus on they're overcompensating and they're like, sometimes, I don't want to say lying, but sometimes people do exaggerate the truth, then I'm going to get angry. But if I can remove that part of it, then I need to just stay into the observation part of what that really is and go from there, and you make a more clear decision. But I think vulnerability is very important nonetheless, like to show up vulnerable in the right places at the right time has its own power. Do I think that work is the place for that? Probably not. While I'm very close to the people I work with, I know the high level of their life. I also like boundaries. And I learned this the hard way because I did become very close to some of my developers in the past. And then it was like, I felt like I was too close where they had no boundaries, and then they would lose respect for things like timelines. Because,
Interesting.
because, oh, it's Sunandini, she's my friend now.
Right.
So
Right.
there was some sense of certain boundaries I don't need to cross, And I have plenty of friends, so I don't need to, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think vulnerability has its time and place, and I don't think a tech project is it, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. Some of your other businesses, I saw that I know we talked about this just before the start, but you had a skin product line, Mahi Care.
I did.
Which was really cool when I was reading about it, because I think it was targeted towards South Asian women, and some of the ingredients too were, spices and things like that if you're in the South Asian community, you know about, obviously. But tell me about that business and how it got started. And I know it's not operating to my understanding anymore, but I'd be curious to hear more about that.
Well, Mahi was quite the journey for me. It actually started out as a CBD skincare company. I believe very strongly in CBD and its healing components, and it was such a fantastic product line. Honestly, like, I used it all the time, my friends used it, whatever. It was fantastic. Like, the issues with having a CBD product, which I didn't know, and I just kind of jumped in. Again, this is who I am. I'm like, oh, I love this. Let's just go, like, whatever, sell my house. No, I'm just kidding. But kind of an all-in person. So I didn't realize that with CBD, there's a lot of advertising regulations that I would have to work around. So I was not able to advertise on Instagram. I wasn't able to advertise on most social media platforms. I wasn't able to get verified. I wasn't able to sell my products in so many marketplaces, even Amazon, which is such a key component, because of the simple fact that it had CBD, and it didn't even have THC. Right. So it's not like it was like getting people high. It was like the plant component, the cannabinoid 1 and 2, which are healing properties externally. Anyway, then, I got rid of that. And then we transitioned the line into more of the South Asian brand. So like makeup that goes with South Asian skin. Turmeric is our favorite thing ever in life. So turmeric-based soaps and cleansers, etc. And we also have a candle line like under that, which I still have the candles. I'm going to be out of the inventory soon. But the truth, I
have to purchase some for my wife, because I think she'll love them.
Oh my God, I'll send you some. But I had to really get real with myself in the journey of Mahi. So recently we decided, we as an I, me and my team of myself, I decided that it's just something that I think I need to part ways with. It was taking, the amount of roadblocks I had in that business made it feel like no longer fun. And I hate to sound like, but kind of felt like maybe it's just not meant to be, because I think that things are supposed to be a little bit easier, and my energy towards it was getting very stagnant, and I just wasn't excited about it anymore. So I had to get real that like this has become something that's just breaking even. It's not making me any money. It's not fulfilling any of my internal requirements. You know, it just wasn't fulfilling for me anymore. And it's a very difficult space to break into because it is skincare. There's so many liabilities, the insurance, the this, the that. So I was like, you know what, at this point, I'm just not happy and I need to be real with what this journey's been for me. It taught me a lot. It taught me, like, it got me in conversations that I never thought I'd have with
Yeah.
major retail buyers. I pitched to Sephora. I did so many cool
Wow.
things with it. But they just didn't come to its full potential. And, you know, I said, all right, bye. I kind of forgot about it until this morning because even though it's been like, honestly, it's only been like 2 weeks. I just, when I'm done, I'm
Oh,
done.
is it that
Yeah,
recent?
yeah. When I'm done, I'm
Okay.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you, like, when you're so invested into something, like I feel like it's almost a skill to know, okay, when to let go of something. But it's something that you just said though has been consistent. It seems like with you is that that vibrational match isn't there. It's not true to yourself, right? Like you lost that interest. You're not showing up authentically to the work anymore. You know, all those things seem to be consistent in your path, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the best place to operate from. And that's when it, like, when a chapter is done, that's when it's easy then. Like, it doesn't, you know, I could sit here and cry and be like, oh my God, like, I loved this business so much. I did at one point. It did what it did for me. And I don't think any skill set ever goes wasted. So who knows, in the future, I might have my own talk show and like launch my own skincare line when CBD is legal, and then I'll know how to
I'm
do
not gonna
it.
doubt it. With what I'm getting to know about you, I don't doubt it.
Who knows?
Do you find did you find yourself as you moved into adult life that you went through a journey of like trying to figure out who you are and all these sort of things, or did you feel like no, that was kind of understood that growing up? Because you know we hear about, I think, I don't want to say everyone, but I think the majority of people, right? Like you're present as a kid, and then stuff happens as you get into teenage years, and then you're at this point where like, oh, it's like those 15, 20 years growing up are kind of a blur, and I don't even know who I am. And now you spend all this time trying to search for yourself and all these sort of things. Would you describe yourself as having gone through some sort of similar journey?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's the only thing I've ever cared about. I feel like I took birth to just like stay close to my identity because my number one fear in my life is to lose my identity to something that's outside of myself. Like it's been such a prominent theme in my life.
Mm.
And very transparently for me, I tend to do that in a relationship. I'm very like I'm scared to lose that part of me, and I have. And it was like it was a very painful journey to rebuild yourself,
Mm.
but then you're more solid in who you are through it. Because in my previous relationship, like I had become that person. And I remember waking up for a good year being like, who am I? Like, what do I even care about anymore? But it was just, you know, it had become this person, their life, their family, their friends, their this, their that, and all these
Oh,
things.
like you mean you became this person that was focused on their partners
Yeah,
kind of solely,
yeah,
whereas you were losing your own self.
100%. And
Okay.
that was so odd for me, and it was very odd for the people in my life to witness because they were like I was robotic almost. Like I knew I just
Mm.
wasn't operating from this clarity of self. And that's not on anybody else, that's only on me. And I think that that was a important lesson in my life and an important chapter in my life to really solidify who I really am, because I believe so deeply in contrast, and experiencing things that just don't sit right force you and catapult you into the things that do feel right. So, you know, one of the things was absolutely the transition out of that relationship was very difficult, but so important. And it solidified that version of me again. So I think honestly, my whole life, like the one thing, my whole prayer since I was very young has been to stay whole in who I am and not affected by the things outside of myself that are variables. Whether it's people, you know, places, your environment, your business, your money, your looks, your own happiness. Sometimes we're human beings. Sometimes I'm not happy. Sometimes I'm crying. Sometimes I'm whatever. But in my core, my prayer is, may I remain so whole and aligned to my God or my universe that I'm not affected by these variables. That's it. That's the word.
I'm juggling because I don't like not absolutely not at all what you're saying, because I think it's incredibly beautiful, and just the fact that you have consistently thought this through and remains your prayer, like it's amazing. Like I don't think many people think that way. They're focused on they're focused on other things that are tangible and physical, and that's all good, to each their own. But
But that's how you get the tangible things, right? Like I think where people don't understand, when you look at like very powerful leaders and you look at, there's, you know, I have idols that I really like love and admire, the one consistency in all of them, and I studied the shit out of these people, is that self, that one, that knowing of self, that's it. And, you know, when you detach yourself from the tangible, I feel like it just shows up. It must. It's easy then. But the more you like go and chase something and you attract more the lack of it. I've seen evidence of that in my own life. And, you know, sometimes you have good days, sometimes you're in this chasing energy that doesn't feel good. But sorry, you were going to say something else that I rudely interrupted.
No. I'm glad I didn't interrupt that. That's I love that. I was just going to say, you said that with that relationship, that was on you, in terms of you not showing up in the way you wanted to show up, and you not maintaining your sense of self and all that. I mean, without knowing obviously any of the details, I think partners have a huge component in that, though. I think that, you know, if you're with somebody who I think is that right person, they will embrace who you are, right? They will create that space for you. They will fight to ensure that your identity is preserved, especially in the South Asian culture, right? There's so much pressure that goes on the brides in a relationship, right? Especially with in-laws and stuff like that, right? And so I think it is up to, you know, partners to create that space and to fight for their partners and to ensure that they can preserve their identities. And I don't see that a lot with a lot of South Asian men. They fold to their parents. They, you know, all these sort of things happen. And so, it's...
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'll say this. I think with me, it was almost like an experiment because I've been so grounded in who I am. I kind of wanted to lose myself and I wanted to see what it was like. And I know that on a subconscious level, I'm being very honest, on a subconscious level, I wanted to experience a type of relationship that is so unconventional for me, where it's literally the most traditional conventional relationship. And for me, it was so different. Like I wanted to lose myself to it, to be like, who will I be? Does this work for me? Does this lifestyle fit for me? Does that align with who I am? And then like, to some degree, I always know this on a subconscious level. It sounds so crazy, but I definitely manifested that breakup. I definitely manifested that pain because I wanted the next level of me. I wanted to go through this turmoil. And again, everything is a soul decision. When I took birth, I made these decisions. So going through it was very painful, but I know that there's this part of me that allowed myself to push myself to be like, oh no, I want to lose that version of me and let's play around with this one. And then I was like, oh, I don't like it so much. How do I go back to this? So, you know, while, yes, of course, our partners have responsibilities in the things that they do, I do feel that I was not projecting the best version of myself because I wasn't myself. And then nothing bad ever happened in that journey. I think we literally parted ways because both of us felt that we were not ourselves. And it's very interesting because I was projecting a version of me that I was like, wait, who am I? And then my partner's looking at me like, wait, who are you? And they're like, wait, but who am I? Because it just wasn't us anymore.
Yeah.
So the best thing for us was to go through that. And for me, it was a spiritual journey. For him, I don't know what that journey was. It's been a while. But that's just one example of, you know, a part of my life where I did lose myself. There's so many other parts.
Yeah. I understand. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just looking at the time, and I wonder if we can pivot to the questions that we typically ask our guests, if that's okay with you.
Yes, let's do it.
I have a feeling with our first question, the 5 for dinner question, I imagine these are those people that you study, so I'm curious to see who your 5 are. But dead or alive, who are 5 people you'd want to have a meal with? And I'd be curious if you'd have them together as a group meal or individually.
No, one-on-one, first of all.
One-on-ones, okay.
Oh, definitely one-on-one, 12 hours with each minimum. I have so many questions. Kobe Bryant is number one. Oh, my absolute...
That one still kills me.
Me too.
Think, oh my God.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Literally, I was watching highlights last night. I was like, oh my God. I still can't believe it. I can't.
You read his book?
Of course, it's on my desk, literally behind me.
Okay, yeah.
Kobe is, oh my God, I can't believe when I say that he's passed, it still doesn't resonate.
No.
But to me, he is the absolute definition of greatness and focus. And I love that Phil Jackson introduced meditation into Kobe's life. And my conversations would be very much so around the impact of meditation on his game and, all those things. I had this dream where I was like, Kobe's going to be on our app one day and, but anyway, Kobe Bryant, Jay-Z, I think phenomenal entrepreneur, very strategic, sharp man, invests in the right thing at the right time. Powerful observer, very, very grounded and powerful manifestor.
Yeah.
Kanye, I know,
Okay.
I know. A lot of people.
There's the controversial one, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe, but the way that I see Kanye West is a person who doesn't express and articulate what he's really trying to say the right way. Kanye is a super genius. There's no doubt about it. That man has gotten every single thing that he said he would and then some in his life, from his relationships to the amount of money that he's made, to him honestly being a fashion icon, to a musical genius, the way that he expresses his emotions, the way that he expresses the human ability through music is very powerful. People don't get it, but
you think he's just really misunderstood?
I think he's misunderstood because he wants to be. I think if he fine-tuned his articulation and really wanted that to be a part of his journey, he would be very clear in how he speaks. But I don't think that that's a focus for him, because somebody like Kanye, he has very strong control on how he shows up and what people see in him. I think he just hasn't decided to do that. Once he decides, and that's really the difference between him and Jay-Z. Jay-Z is a very well-spoken person because he decided to be. And then Osho.
Okay.
Again, I think people, they saw this story on Netflix and think that that's what Osho is. Absolutely not. Osho is oh my God, I don't even know where I would begin in that interaction. What a powerful, powerful man. Just everything that I've learned through Osho just blows my mind, because I never get it the first time. And then later in life, I'm like, oh my God. And then, not to take away from the fact that he was one of the first spiritual leaders to really tell people to be so spiritually aligned that material things are just a thing. And he had,
Right.
I don't know, 300 and something Rolls Royces. And I mean, why not live your human experience to that level? He told us to go have the best experience. And I love Osho for that. And then I would say Yogananda. Not sure if you've ever read
No.
Autobiography of a Yogi.
No,
Oh
I
my
haven't.
God. That's, yeah, it's a toss up for me between him and Wayne Dyer. I know two very different people, but Autobiography of a Yogi and Yogananda, just such a powerful book. The energy that it was written in, his experiences, I would love to just hear even 10 minutes of that in person. But it's definitely a toss up, so I know I'm saying a sixth one, but Wayne Dyer,
Yeah.
same thing. Like, what a just impactful man. And what I love about Wayne Dyer is he took the Taoist studies, the Vedic studies of Hinduism, a lot of the Upanishads, a lot of references from the Gita, a lot of the quantum stuff, a lot of the Western philosophies, a lot of the Hermetic philosophies, Greek philosophies, and combined everything into a way that we could flow with life. And I love that he taught flow and not the doership part. So Wayne Dyer is a very powerful person that has unfortunately passed, but love him.
What an amazing five.
Six.
And six, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, like you have them all individually, hey?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can't. Could never mix that. What would I do? I think I'd want to like definitely like just write a book on all of them or something.
Yeah, yeah. There's I think it was either after Kobe passed away or maybe it was before, I don't know. But I think Jay-Z said this. He's like, sometimes, there'd be a table with all these Black entrepreneurs and just powerhouses, right? And he said that Kobe just had this presence, like when he spoke, like he just, the room would just get quiet kind of thing, and find those people very fascinating. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
I think people that are whole have a very strong magnetism towards them. And you don't see that, like back in the day when we were growing up, like celebrities kind of had this aura. I don't think they have that anymore because everybody's a celeb now.
Sure.
But they had this aura, and it was like this magnetic like energy field in them. And it came from being so whole and so secure in your skill set. And that's why when you hear someone like Kobe speak, or someone even like Jay-Z, I listen to every word and I take it in because there's such a strong presence.
Yeah.
I don't know, people don't have that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Fascinating. Last question. Besides the circle of life, what do you know for sure?
What do I know for sure? I know that everything is a variable to change, and the thing that I know for sure is, as I don't want it to sound like a sad thing, but it's like you really are just alone. And I mean that in the sense of you are the only perceiver of like your reality. If I remove my five senses, then the only truth I have is my inner self. So, and the five senses and its experience is constantly changing and evolving. So your only truth is like really your inner self. That's what I know for sure.
I feel, yeah, that's,
Whole nother ball game.
yeah, it is a whole nother ball game, but it comes back from like, just, yeah, what you spoke about of just your identity starts from birth, and you're speaking about the soul, right? I think you're speaking about the soul, right?
I am.
Yeah. Okay.
I am.
I don't want to made that assumption, but I feel like it was, I think I understood what you're saying. I really loved our conversation. There was,
Me too.
your obviously the spiritualness about you came out loud and clear. I didn't know that about you. But there was this cerebralness about you that I find very attractive in people that I really love to engage with. And so, and even just the five that you describe, or six that you describe, there is that component of that. And it's just, I feel like I could talk to you an hour 30 already. I said that some of the not so great podcasts, and I'll just say this, haven't gone as long. I said if you make it past this amount, it's probably a good one. And we're at an hour 30. I truly enjoyed our conversation. I learned a ton about you, but also from you. And so thank you for that. We'll put all of Sunandini's information on our show notes. And I look forward to just engaging with you in the future and maybe record something sometime later down the road. And hopefully you enjoyed yourself as much as I enjoyed myself. So
I had a fantastic time. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for being somebody who pulls out such a deeper story. It's really your gift. And, you know, I could sit here and be silent if you weren't narrating the conversation in the way that you did. So I really appreciate that. And again, thank you for bringing that out in me. And I'd love to have another conversation.
Oh, that's very sweet and kind of you. Thank you. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us. And like I said, for the rest of summer, there might not be that many recordings, but we'll be back in full force during September. Have a great summer. Thanks, everyone. Bye.